Hi there, this is Daniel, and this is The Story of Daniel, Episode 6, Daniel the Freshman. My freshman year of high school saw a great many changes in my life. The hardest for me was the loss of my father. No, he didn't pass away for another 6 years yet. He just got up one night and left the family. Funny that. In doing some research for this story, I talked to many of my friends from high school and found out that, I never really talked about my father. This ended up to be a generational thing, by the way. For example, for my nieces, Kim and Jess, the reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. Estrangement, it seems, for my family is no stranger. It hasn't always been this way, as you, dear reader, know by now. There is a very strong sense of family and community that ran through the Hannings since I was born. The Hannings were, by unity of action and through harmony of abilities, a working, functional family unit. Then it all changed. It changed for me that day when I met Betty Sue and her mother. For my father, it changed long before that day. But on that day, he lost more than he had bargained for. And he never got it back. He lost the adoration of his most ardent fan, me. But when did the Hanning family become aware of the change? It did not come for them till the summer before my freshman year of high school. The big event came during the summer, just before the new year started. So things at home had drastically changed just a few months before the first days at Pearland High School. Now, I am not sure how others of my class felt, but I, for one, was very happy to be back on the old campus. It was more familiar to me. At this point, we all left the newly built but creepy middle school and returned to the campus we had been on for the first part of middle school. The wooden lockers, the familiar hallways, the open air and natural lighting. It made me relax and begin again to enjoy school. Now, don't get me wrong, I continued to make good grades and keep a positive outward appearance at all the time we spent at the new middle school. But it just never felt right. One of the first classes I remember distinctly from my freshman year was a cappella choir. The Pearland High School choir, the Pearland High School a cappella choir, had just returned from the Vienna Music Festival, where they had been asked to perform. When I joined, the choir director was the same one that took Pearland to Austria. Mr. Slager replaced her, and I believe it was Mr. Slager came in my sophomore year, if I'm not mistaken. Back to the story. Now, since the third grade, I had been part of the school choir every single year, without fail, without break. For 6 years, I had sang for my school. But this year was not a shoo-in. I had to audition for the seat. And there were far fewer seats available than there were students sitting around me to try out. Now, nobody got a pass on the audition, regardless of how many years you'd been singing for how many school choirs. This time was different for me. This choir, it would be an honor for me to be a part of it. That is, if I passed the audition. It took some time before it was my turn. I remember sitting through 2 young women and a young boy singing. Then I hear Daniel Hanning, Is there a Daniel Hanning here? Come on up, Danny. You don't mind me calling me Danny, do you? Good. She told me what song I was to sing, had the pianist play the song for me twice, and handed me sheet music for the piece as well. Now, for the life of me, I do not remember what the song was. I remember it was a classical piece, and one that, luckily, I had been familiar with prior to that day. The song did not start well at all. My throat seemed to close up all on its own. I was trembling and shaking, and the sheet music was moving so much I kept getting my keys mixed up. It's terrible. The choir director noticed, and she thankfully stopped and asked me, Danny, do you need to get some water? It sounds like your throat is dry. Why don't you step outside, Danny, and get some water? Boy, what a grace that was. The water fountain was just outside the choir hall exit. I remember that clearly. It was right between the girls' and the boys' bathrooms. I remembered because of the line that formed there after each and every class and practice. And there'd be a line of boys and girls going all the way through the double doors down the hallway. Everybody was trying to get some water, and band members too. As I write these words, images come clearly to focus in my mind. The door to the choir room was large, heavy, solid wood with aluminum trim and an aluminum lock. The entrance to the choir hall was just on the other side of glass double doors, and that hallway led to a side entrance to the auditorium just around the corner from the bathrooms and the water fountain. The bathrooms were just on the other side of those doors from the choir room. I remember that classroom so very well. For 4 years, I spent at least 1 hour there 5 days a week. I stepped outside, went through the double doors, and over to the fountain. I drank deep. While I was drinking, my mind was racing. What the heck? What was wrong with me? I'd performed in front of people now for going on 7 years. I had been singing in front of small groups and large groups, singing in large auditoriums on stages, and singing in small rooms with people only inches to feet away. I hadn't felt like this, reacted like this in years and years. Well, regardless of why it was happening, I was bringing this nonsense to an end and doing it right now. I finished my drink, wiped off my mouth, and came back through the double doors. Now I stood there at the large wooden door to get into the choir hall, looking in the small window that looked into the choir room. There was nothing different about this choir room than any other I had spent literally years in. There was a piano, risers, extra seating for students, music charts and music sheets all over, and a few metronomes. It was a completely classic choir room. What was bothering me? What was so different? Well, I wasn't going to pass the audition standing in the hallway. I had to get back into that room and show these people just how well I could sing. I screwed up my courage, squared my shoulders, extended my chest, and strode back confidently into the choir room. This felt better. I felt more in control and much less overwhelmed. By trying out to be a part of the choir that just sang at the Vienna Music Festival in Austria. Nope, not going to focus on that. Not going to happen, Danny. I stood beside the piano, picked up the sheet music, and cleared my throat. She asked, "Okay, Danny, feeling better?" That was a genuine question, too. She cared. "Are you ready to begin again?" She was so kind, yet firm. I would like being in her class. I responded in a firm yet young voice, "Yes, thank you. I needed some water. My throat sort of closed up. I'm sorry. I'm ready now. She motioned to the pianist, and he began to play. This time, I noticed I could see his music perfectly from where I was standing, and I could see his hands and feet as well. This was very good. By watching his hands and feet and the music at the same place, I could get a better handle on the flow of the music. I'm not sure if it was that, the water, the fresh air, the extra few moments to muster courage, noticing that I could see the music and his hands and feet, or all of the above, but this time I nailed it. I did so well at the end, the other students applauded for me. They hadn't clapped for any other student auditioning, but just then, they did for me. I wouldn't find out for another 2 days from the choir director if I made the choir, but right then, I had a pretty good feeling. Danny just got into the Pearland High School a cappella choir. The Pearland High School, the one that was invited to sing at the Vienna Music Festival in Austria. That Pearland High School a cappella choir. I didn't know it then, but right then, I just took my first step towards graduating with a letterman jacket and double lettering in liberal arts. Nevertheless, right then, I was hearing the single greatest sound in the universe for me. Applause. This brings us to the end of Part 1, Episode 6 of the story of Daniel, Daniel the Freshman. Be sure to come back Friday for Part 2 of Episode 6. And again, as always, thank you so much for all your kindness and your support. Thank you for everything that you've done and hopefully everything everyone will do. And may God bless.